Forrest, the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's 3:02 on Wednesday, February 26th, and this regular meeting of the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board is called to session. Thank you all for being here. We'll see if we have folks participating online, and we'll move to our agenda after the first item of business, which is the election of officers for the advisory board. We will have elections for chair and vice chair and possibly nominations for secretary. I'm going to begin and use the prerogative of the chair to make a motion, put a motion forward that the advisory board elect Chris Wilson to serve as its chair for the year. And would welcome a second.
I'll second that.
It's moved in second that it's been moved by Rogers and seconded by the mayor of Castle Valley. So ask for any questions or comments. Hearing none.
Discussion.
Discussion. All questions, comments, discussion. Yes. Any discussion? So there's no discussion, no questions, no comments. So I'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your hands to affirm aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I didn't give you a chance to object or abstain.
That was very quick.
It's not like it was a surprise. Okay. So, Mr. President, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
The floor is yours.
thank you, Forrest. Thank you all for, trusting me. I would just ask Forrest and anyone to help me. I'm not a Rogers rules expert here, so I'll do my best to move through the rest of the meeting. And I also didn't design the entire agenda, so I'll rely on you, Forrest, to help us through it, please, if you don't mind. But we still need to elect another officer, which would be for the vice president role.
Chair.
Thank you. Vice chair role. We can't, I would do it if I could, vice president. I think that was already taken.
I mean, it sounds better.
Vice chair.
I would
Would you like to
move,
make a motion?
I would move that we elect Melissa Jeffers as vice chair.
I second.
So we have a motion to elect Melissa Jeffers vice chair, made by Forrest, seconded by Ashley. Any discussion?
You're doing good?
Well, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye,
It's unanimous.
with one abstention.
Well, abstention by Lisa.
Oh, I didn't know if you were supposed to vote.
You can vote for yourself.
You can vote for yourself. Would you vote for
Yeah,
yourself?
and then
It'll
it
make
gets
us
to
all
your
feel
neighbors.
better.
Yes, just, you go.
It'll make us all feel better. It's now unanimous.
The notes are considered right too.
Yeah, exactly.
Larson, in the waiting room, who's Larson?
I don't know. It's an open, but it's fine. Let them all in. You have to.
Okay, so we also did have a request by Quinn in the commissioner administrator's office to appoint a secretary or have a volunteer for secretary who would help with minutes for the meetings. Due to, and I don't know if everybody's up to speed on this, but you saw, I think, in Ben's email, right, that the duties to manage this board have been passed to the commission administrator's office. And so we don't have the support of Ben Alter in that role anymore. That's
And
specific.
do you guys want me to tell you why?
It would be, I think, great. Should we? Yeah, we can do that before you vote.
Okay, so in reviewing the budget, one of the big audit things last year amongst many was that the economic development can't be paid out of TRT funds anymore. And they still had it in the budget that way. So starting out this year, the economic development duties were still listed under TRT funds. And so The only way that, so we released subcommittee that we talked about it, Mary, Brian and I, and we also talked to Tina Cannon, the state auditor, many times. And really the only way to get it out of there, to be compliant in our budget was to take economic development out of that department that's solely funded by TRT.
Okay,
And so there's no way, so we had no funding, so they did not fund.
because you're working off of last year's budget.
Well, yeah, they approved the budget for this year, so I mean, like, I was not in control of that budget.
Right.
So I have a budget that I'm working with, that, the commissioner works with now, so, what I like, I mean, I love economic development, it's not necessarily like I wanna kill this board or the department, but it's the way that it was, it just wouldn't work, we'd have to amend the budget, and so to continue on and just get going with it, that's what happened, so it wasn't like there's anything wrong with, I mean, it's just, there's no funds. So till we figure out how to fund it, and I do believe, talking to Deborah McKee,
Yeah.
that, we can fund that department with the grants. I mean, we could fund it with the grants, and then we wouldn't even be taking it out of the general fund. So right now, we cannot fund something from the general fund unless the commission comes forward and funds it, and that discussion could happen, and we could put it back in, we'll see how it goes. So at the moment, this is the way that it's panning out.
Okay.
So,
So what are these guys doing right now? Are they? Not with the county anymore?
no, that's what they're with the travel council, with the new mob office of tourism.
That they're only doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mob
actually.
Office of Tourism.
What,
Economics do fall into that, so they're still gonna be doing economics, with
Sure.
travel council, just not the, not this piece. Yeah.
so just to clarify, so this piece meaning this board. And so this board is a little bit homeless right now, but we're going to be administered by the county, right?
Yeah.
And so as far as budget goes, like if we look at our function, the main function is the grants, right? And the things that we're working on that are not the grants.
Are also our functions because they're in our bylaws.
So yeah, in our bylaws, right?
Another function.
Yeah, the other functions. I guess I'm asking what do we need staff to do for us? Like if we aren't in the budget right now and we want to be in the budget in the future, we should figure out what we would want staff to do. I mean, there's a million things to do in terms of promoting our economy and growing our economy and
Yeah, which
working
would
and
be,
maintaining.
which would be a commission, commission needs to decide what they wanna do with that department, with the economic development department.
Right, but we could make a recommendation is where I'm going, like, we're living in this, so we could come back and say, here's an idea, like, in terms of, I mean, it can go both ways, obviously, the commission can decide what they want to do, but it feels like if we wanted to think about it for a minute, because it used to be that economic development was this one word, diversification, and that was the only thing that mattered. And the reality is that's the least of our problems right now. Like we have a lot of big factors affecting our economy that are going to affect how we do this year. And there does need to be an economic development home that is working on these issues, And so it's just an idea to think about like, okay, we're in a little bit of twilight zone for a minute. What would be the ideal, or what would be, could we make a case for why we think we do need staff and what is that staff doing?
I love it, and I want us to have an economic development. I mean, I think that it's a super important piece of it.
It seems like otherwise it's just the commission having to take on that.
Yeah, well, and at the moment, it's just really, there's just nothing really happening with it, so. Other than our economic development grants, the RCOC and the RCOG, the two grants, but. It's not, so I think that this board is definitely going to have a huge role in getting those grants and figuring out how those grants are gonna be used, whether they're used to help fund long-term, help fund the department because they can be used for that, and then having that department to say, we want the department to go out and do this, and so on a big, broad level in our community. So that's really where we have to focus on first, is those grants, and then we'll figure out that part and
Yeah, the
And-
non-grant
and,
you know,
activities. that we
Aaron,
could-
Oh, yeah, it seemed on one of the previous meetings that we had, was able to ask, the Benz how much time they had spent, and they were able to divide that, and then the general fund was reimbursed. I think a place to be would be to ask staff, like, how much time were you spending on this? You know, is that something that like, was it 20 hours a week? Was it, you know, 10 hours a week? So you can get, like, they would probably have the idea is like, that a full-time job? Is that
Right, how
like,
much it would cost.
you know, is it like a Vista volunteer that works for the county, you know? That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah, and
I-
I think there was, I mean, Ben did have a number associated, a percentage associated with his job.
Right.
It's, I mean, I understand that the problem with it is also the budget and
There's a whole-
funding for that position didn't
Yeah,
align
but
with that.
an idea of
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you know, is it some kind, you know, the county administrator is, do you have time, Quentin? He's saying no, so, you know.
Well, yeah, I think those are really important questions, like what did they do in the past and what does he have time? But I feel like we need to even back up and say, what is it we need the staff to do?
Yeah,
Because it was so mushed together with tourism that there is a real opportunity to look at it. You know, separately as a separate thing. Because tourism is getting people to come here and that's great, but economy is a different animal.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we can consider, and I've heard some suggestions already, that we create a future agenda item out of this, basically, and see what we can do to be helpful with the commission in rethinking what economic development looks like in the county, basically. Obviously, that's gonna have to be done, you know, under some direction from and in conjunction with commission for it to be useful. And so I think we can try to figure out a way to have structured discussion and sort of see what we can do to help with that. Are there other, I mean, are there other questions for Melody specifically, or should we move on to secretary?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Is there any ability for the county to make a line item or invest in this part of the county?
If it was something that the commission chose to do,
We'd have to make it attractive to the commissioners to see if they would want to invest in that. Is that?
yeah, and I don't think that they necessarily saw that they were cutting it by not moving it out of TRC money, but, that's just ultimately like,
The state.
when I come in and I look at the budget, I'm like, this budget isn't, it's just, is it in compliance as the one we just got audited on, you know, and so we have to fix that, so we don't get, I mean, look, they froze our tax money last year, so to me, that was a big deal. It does suck that this is where we are at the moment as far as like putting things in a reorganization. So we're gonna find a home for economic development, okay? We're gonna, you know, so I think that it'll get found a home, it's just in the moment, but what we do is still super important. What this board's gonna do and what was gonna happen, and we can do it within ourselves, right? So, I mean, I think that the chair's job in the bylaws is actually to make sure that those grants are like filled out and stuff, so, got a big job. That's
Yeah.
my Forest favorite team, you know, so it actually gives those jobs inside of the bylaws of the Economic Opportunities Advisory Board.
Yeah.
And so we'll get it done, it's gonna happen, I think this board can totally take care of getting those grants done, and then that forward motion for what economic development and what that department can look like in the county.
We might as well think about it.
Yeah,
I mean, we're living in this space
So-
and there is, you know, there's sort of a lot of economic development people at counties are being asked different questions right now by the governor's office of what's going on, and some of those are coming to the chamber and but like, there's just a piece that, but we can work on this.
Yeah, and I mean, more than that, I think that from a historical perspective, those of us who've been on this board for a while, know that we did receive significant support from the Economic Development Department. And so like, I mean, I agree with you, like, I'm gonna make this happen. We're all gonna make this happen. We're not gonna not get the grants this year because of this. Like,
yeah,
we're in a limbo period. We're gonna make it happen, but also just realistically, like, long-term, we need some support to do a good job.
oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Well, and
like,
I like
could
the
we
department
just take out
more.
some grants? Like, maybe, but if we want to do a good job in supporting economic development in this community, we do need some support from the county. So, and I hear you saying that too.
Yeah,
so-
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, at this moment in time, I think our main
You were
goal
dealing
is,
with an emergency.
yeah, and to deal with
Got it.
just to go forward with our grants, and then once we get them taken care of, and then we can come back and revisit.
Yeah.
And, you know, and propose, and hopefully have it ready for our budget for 2026. You know.
Let's see.
And we'll see, I mean, I'm still really new on all this too, but I just,
Yeah.
so I,
So for the freshmen, I'm
Yeah.
really sorry because I'm trying to catch up really fast. So what was the support? Because you said that it was a significant amount. Can you tell me kind of like the actual, I know that they did the grants, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, just administering these meetings for, and we could, I think we might want to, and I think Ashley and Aaron are suggesting like we do a little bit more formally try to answer that question, but just for like filling in background, what I can just say right off the top of my head is administering these meetings, helping do outreach with and working through the grant application process with the community members that were applying for them.
and the state.
And the state, and right, actually writing the grants and sending them into the state basically, or co-writing them with the community partners. And then I think there's the rest of the duties sort of, we're somewhere in that gray zone between tourism and economic and broader economic development, right? Like being a part of this, the Trail of Tomorrow's process, like guiding a strategic planning process for economic development in the county. That was a department function. And then more broadly, like being the interface between the business community and other economic actors about economic needs that the county should be addressing. Coordinating with other departments like planning and zoning on economic development issues. I think there's a lot, but yeah, that's some of it for sure. Okay, so yeah, while we're, talking about new members, welcome to the new members of this board. Thank you both for your service and for being here with us today. And given that we're in this little limbo and we don't have a ton of support, back to Quinn's request that we offer some support with the role of secretary. Just I guess to start with, does somebody just want to volunteer for that role? We can also talk about divvying it up or something like that. If that would
And the
be
duties
helpful.
are,
Basically, what is minutes is what we need support with. I think, officially, like a secretary would be the like third if the chair and the vice chair are not present, they would help elect a chair pro tem to administer a meeting. But the main thing I think we actually need support with is helping with minutes.
I'll take it for today.
Thank you, Forrest.
I'll do it for
Volunteering.
today.
Quinn,
for
are you
today.
doing it already then, Quinn?
Well, unless Forrest can take it over. Want to make sure it gets done, that's all.
It's work, it's listening to the conversation and then looking at the video of the meeting and identifying the key topics and the key actions.
Yes.
Brittany, you had some kind of AI thing,
Yeah.
right, that you were doing dictation with? How,
I started
would that work for a minute?
Did you use it?
Yeah.
I've used it a couple of times for sure.
Would that work for minutes?
Somebody would still have to go in and look
And
at all of it. and
refine
stuff.
it.
I do not want to do the secretary role, but I would say, if I was the secretary, I would use that a lot, yes.
Yeah, I just wondered
Is
if
the
that was like
question,
a
yeah.
viable.
Yeah, I know specifically we need recorded all the votes in particular is one of the big things. We could probably dial back how extensive our minutes are.
Right, if you've done your open public meetings training, the record, it kind of goes through what you need in your minutes in that.
Okay, well, please think about that, and we'd love to offer Quinn as much support as we can. Thank you very much, Forrest, for volunteering to do it today. We'll maybe revisit this as we send out the agenda for the next meeting.
I'll totally volunteer for after today then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thanks.
I used to take minutes for trail mix.
that would be fantastic. All right,
Thank you.
thank you for volunteering. Really appreciate that.
It's not.
That's like the worst.
I always try to put Easter eggs in them too, like. People are reading them, right?
That was great. That is great.
I was
Okay.
thinking of minutes, we don't have any minutes from last meeting.
No, we don't have it on the agenda.
You're right. Well, I think we need to go back, and I know Ben was wrapping up things, so we'll go back to Ben and ask if he
Get them and have them for next.
if he
meeting.
has them, and we'll have to do that for next meeting.
Well, quick question on that,
Yeah.
when you do those minutes, then would I be like emailing them to the county administrator? And then that gets published,
They need to be published on the Utah Public Notice website within 3 days of being approved.
right?
So it's important to get the draft minutes out so you can get feedback on the draft minutes. If anybody says, oh no, that's not the way they're line, I remember it differently than to sort that out, and then they're passed the next meeting, and then they go, the official minutes get signed and posted on the public notice website.
So it'd be given to the chair for the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then the chair.
It'd be like chair and commission admin, because we'll create the
Okay.
agenda together for the next meeting and send out notice. And then we'll have to approve them, yeah. Perfect. Okay. Well, we, based on the agenda, went straight to some business into the election of officers. Now I'd like to see if there's any citizens to be heard. Online, citizens to be heard. Hearing none. We'll move to welcome. We've sort of already done that. Welcome to our new folks in particular. Welcome to everyone. Thank you all for being here. And now go to introductions. So we can just very quickly. Go ahead, Quinn.
So Aaron, are you gonna be the secretary? Did we get a motion on
Yeah,
that?
we did.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
I nominate Aaron.
I'll second.
nominated by Ashley, seconded by Jasmine. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It is unanimous. Wonderful. Again, thank you, Eric, for volunteering and nominating, supporting it. Okay, so introductions. Do we have folks online? I see maybe Corey, would you mind starting for us? And then we'll go to Larson if there's someone
Yeah,
there.
you did all that stuff before.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Corey Shirtliff representing City Moab Community Development.
Thanks, Corey. Larson, is there someone online? If you'd just like to introduce yourself. Okay, we'll continue in the room. We don't have anyone else online, do we? Quinn?
No.
Okay. So we just go around this way. Melody?
I'm Melody McCandless, Commissioner. Jasmine Duncan, member of this board, Mayor of Castle Valley.
Forrest Rogers, recently deposed, chair of the advisory board.
Quinn Hall, Grand County Administrator's Office. I'm filling in for Mark. He had a conflict today, so.
Aaron Lindbergh, private citizen.
Ashley Kornblatt, Western
Wonderful.
Spirit, Chamber of Commerce. I think I'm not a private citizen anymore. I think I'm a workforce.
Oh, that's right.
Melissa Jeffers, voting member, community at large.
Brittany Melton, what do you like to say, voting member? Yes, yeah.
And Brandy Barton, voting member representing the Moab Chamber of Commerce.
And Chris Wilson, representing our private sector representative member of the board. Great. So I think that, well, it looks like next up, presentations, if any. I don't know of anything for us. Okay. So then next up would be discussion action items, review of economic development definitions from March 2023. And I think for us, that is your item on the agenda.
I just wanted to remind current members and help our new members have some context about how we got to where we are today. I won't spend a lot of time. I'm not going to go through the bullet points, but in the spring of 2023, we were trying to figure out how to move forward with the Rural Community Grant Program. We were also tasked with trying to figure out how to spend down the diversification funds that had been targeted in the budget. And when that program was sunsetted at the end of that fiscal year, we spent quite a bit of time looking at community needs for economic growth. And not just tourism, but what we described as tourism adjacent businesses, and looking to focus more on the product of Moab. And several people around this table made really significant contributions to that discussion. So the pages here are summaries of the discussion at that meeting, asking people how they would define economic development, and how they would define and differentiate economic diversification. And the reality is, it's all about growing the community of Moab. It's all about creating a healthy business ecosystem. And to use the term that it is now firmly implanted in my brain, expressed by Melissa, which is we're talking about asset-based community development. You know, building on the assets of the community, finding a way to identify growth and change opportunities. I can remember that because the acronym is ABCD. But that's really what we were talking about. And that was also the very beginnings of the conversation about the rural county grants and the rural county opportunity grants in the context of the county's original economic development commission or advisory board or whatever designation it had. So I just wanted to present that and then share with you what I think has been the strength of this board. And I think it's important because there was some discussion at the commission about the fact that this board was not very diverse. And if you just look at the skin color of people sitting around the table, that certainly is true. We have gender diversity, but more importantly, we have diversity of thought. And I just wanted to just go through what that looked like in the people, some of whom are not sitting around this table anymore, but some of them are. We had an entrepreneur who has relocated from out of the country to serve on this board, started a small business, and now is the owner operator of the Gonzo Inn. A serial entrepreneur, has several other businesses. We had a financial planner and wealth manager who worked with a lot of businesses and individuals in this community. We had a representative, a longtime resident and representative from Castle Valley, which is in the Grand County. It's not the furthest outpost. I think Thompson gets that claim, but it's great to have that representation, that voice, and that's one of those that is required, a municipal representative from within the county. We have a coffee entrepreneur who's promoting his brand on the backside of his screen, but is also an international business analyst and has a lot of background for us in this community. We have a couple of small business owners. We have a business owner who is also a consultant to Gateway Communities. And we have had a business owner, small business owner, longtime small business owner who is also the former mayor of Moab. That's a real diversity of skills and perspectives and experience in this community. So I just wanted to emphasize the fact that we're looking at the brain trust that's sitting around this table, present company excluded, but this is a group that's been doing a lot of deep work. So Melody, it's really encouraging to me to say that you really want this organization to continue and to be effective and productive for the community. Because it's great people with great background and great brains to bring to the challenge that we face. So that's it.
Next up on the agenda is the rural county and rural community opportunity grant process recommendations. Is this, I don't see Deborah joining us today. Were we expecting a presentation? I saw in our packet, we have a presentation. And a lot of documentation.
Made that. That is the physical manifestation of my panic. You're looking at it.
Well, I like that your panic is so thorough. Bringing us to documentation.
Listen, I panic detail oriented
Exactly.
with a lot of ultra processed foods, which explains a lot about my physical condition. So yes.
And your joy of life.
I have that in abundance. Yes, yes. So that one was mine because I feel like, I know. This year is different for us because it's not just the RCG that's up for grabs. It's the RCOG again. Because that's a 2-year cycle potentially, depending on how long it takes to deliver your project. And between those two, what we have at stake this year, which is not common, is we have up to $800,000 in investment in our community to build economic development, which is huge. And that's before any matching grants, any additional contribution. Really a big deal. But I think that what kind of got me a little bit panicky is, I don't know if everyone realizes it, but we've got 3 meetings, including this one, left until that recommendation has to be made if we just look at formal meetings. So we've got this meeting, one more in March, one more in April, and then in May is when we have to bottle that up to present to the commission in June
For which grant?
for the RCG and the RCOG,
Oh,
both of them.
Wow, that early.
Yeah.
Two of them back here.
It's-
Last year.
We had to, because, and this is coming from Ben Alter, and I would love it if someone would argue this with me, so
Okay.
please. But the reason why we have to do it that way is, I guess, between the commission meeting schedules and the meeting schedule of the board. There's something in those two things with the handoff that the commission has to have it, and they have to have it on their agenda in order for them to bring it forward.
Mhm.
So I hit a bit of a panic for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have so much at stake and we want to make sure that we're choosing the best projects, the best programs to get them funded, first of all. And second of all, having the adequate public contribution and input, we are running out of time fast. So what I did in that proposal is, and like anything that I ever do for this group, it's meant for people to pick it apart. The only reason why I ever put something out is so that we've got a framework and now we can start saying everything that we hate about it, because that's way easier than coming up with something from scratch. So basically what I did is I said, if you were to take all of the points of community public input, all of the points of what needs to be produced, and kind of what process would we want to go through, then how would we break that down on a timeline? And then I put that out in a timeline just so that we could beat it up and say,
Are those dates that are up in the far left?
up in the far left are the meeting dates of the 3 meetings that we have left before the May meeting, before it goes to the commission for their June meeting.
Okay.
And it's something about the commission, and this was, again, Ben Alter, if he were here, he'd be able to clarify. It has something to do with the time that the commission needs with it. So they vote on it and then it has to come back to, it used to go back to EDD. And then they would draft that grant.
So like, I'm looking at most of the rural county grant information that you included in the packet, like
Yep,
from the
yep, yep.
state, so I'm on page 18 of our packet. And it says, no later than October 1, the county must submit a formal application.
And that's what we thought last year. And that's true for the application to the state.
Yeah, exactly.
But what we learned last year is that because of the commission and this board and whatever, and you were here, do you remember it this way? We were in a heck of a scramble.
Yeah.
Coming
because
down to
that's
June.
up to us, we have to make a recommendation and then that recommendation has to go to the commission and then it goes to the state.
Yeah, and it's by June that
To get that
recommendation
all,
had to be
reach that
to the
October
commission. Yeah.
deadline, we have to get our part of it done by June.
And,
It came as a shock last year too. Do you remember that?
yes,
Like-
and one of the steps that we haven't talked about is after the commission approves the project or program, it goes back to staff to put together the formal submission.
To do the
For
right
going
grant.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's another reason the staff has provided.
Yeah, it's another.
Really important.
And that's when we had staff, so now there is no staff. So I don't know that maybe we want to push it back even sooner. If there aren't resources to actually write it for the state from the county, but I'm just going from last year, how it worked is it had to be off our vote and bundled up for the commission before their June meeting.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's go forward, let's have you keep going forward with the presentation on it based on all of that. And obviously, we'll work and see what space we have.
Extra time,
but this is
always
important,
awesome.
and thank you for pulling this together for us.
Yeah, no, so basically what I did was just sort of summarize, hey, why do we need a process? And we need a process again, because we have almost $1 million this year that can go as investment into our community specifically for economic development. That is a really big deal, and I just want to make sure, competitive as I am, because the RCOG is a competitive grant, I like to win. I want to win. So
Grand County wants to win. Like,
absolutely.
and so what happens if we don't put in good projects for some portion of this,
Mhm.
then other counties will get it.
Correct.
Yeah, we want.
And if we put in the best proposal, like I said, I mean, between those two grants combined, that's $800,000 just in grant money before we hit matching funds or any of those other things. So I just wanted to make sure that we have a process in place, that we feel good about the process and that we can maximize our 3 meetings, because your body language is echoing my panic, which manifested itself in a proposed process, so that we don't skip any steps. We make sure that we hit all of those steps and that we know what our criteria is. We agree to our criteria, because I would really love it if we could come out as a board with our messaging that we want to publish and how we're going to publish that before the next meeting, because then we only have 2 meetings.
Well, and
So-
just to add on to what you've been saying, I mean, at the commission meeting, when we last made, so this was in January, when changes were made to last year's cycle still of the RCG. One of the things that the commissioners asked for and the county attorney asked for was like at least public notice put out there related to these grants. And ideally, just a sort of a broader, more inclusive process calling for more public and business participation.
And I think, so following on that, the reason why I kind of submitted, hey, this is a potential process that we could use, and these are all steps that we could take, is I feel like in the past, we've had applications come in or project proposals come in, and then we're looking through those and evaluating those. With so much money at stake, what I would almost like to do is look at it holistically and strategically and organically, countywide, with more of a view of, hey, that's a really great suggestion from this person, and that's a really great constraint that this person presented, and I didn't know that we had those assets. And we pull all of that feedback together for a more holistic approach to projects, where we say, hey, maybe it's this nonprofit and we're putting out an RFP for this portion, and the county's going to administrate this part and whatever, because it doesn't have to be a proposal and it doesn't have to be a grant application. We just need really good ideas, and we can take those good ideas and combine them with other good ideas and come up with ways to clear some resource constraints by pulling in some other folks, and really take a strategic approach to say, how would we use $1 million to create a lasting investment for long-term economic impact in our community? It's a huge opportunity.
So it feels like to me, there's 2 parts to this, well, there's 17, but no. But
I
that,
manifest stress
yeah, I like it.
in numbers.
But, we need to do, it feels like we need to cast a broad net and publicize and say, hey, everybody, this money's available, and give them enough information so that they would be enticed to apply, but also know whether they're gonna qualify, right?
Right, put out who's not gonna qualify.
Yeah,
with
why
it,
you wouldn't,
So that
yeah.
people who aren't going to, like the K through 12. So
And almost, I would cast that net broader, because it's not even whether or not you qualify. If you've got a really good idea or something that you think is hamstringing us or whatever, you may not necessarily be getting funding for that,
but give us your
but
idea.
it is an amazing idea. And this nonprofit is perfect at this, and these kinds of businesses can fill out this RFP, right? Like, how can we get a broader participation?
Right, and we'll definitely, I mean, I see these things come across as a business owner, and you're like, huh, is it worth it?
Yeah.
You know, and you have a lot of other things to do that day. And so, and you're like, am I gonna
That's a lot of
qualify,
work.
and is it gonna be enough money to make it, and then what am I really gonna do, and do I really fit, like square hole round peg thing, right? And when we created Outer Bike, we did fit, and it was a thing, and now we have Outer Bike. But now we don't qualify anymore because it's not a new thing, right? I don't think, but anyway, and so there's definitely, we need to say, we could ask almost maybe there's three ways that we get ideas. One is just what's your idea to fix the Moab economy? Like just a really broad-based thing. And if you had some funding, like what you were just describing, just what's your idea? And then the other piece would be, okay, here, a very simple one pager. If you are A, B, C, D, and E, you can apply for this money, like try to boil it down and then broadcast that out, put it in all the papers, put it on whatever, the county webpage or wherever we can, and the chamber can send it out. And so there'd be this call for proposals, right? So there's a call for ideas, there's a call for proposals, but then there's this third way, which is who should we reach out, like sort of more proactive, encouraging people to apply, because there's nothing wrong with that. We're not telling them they're gonna win, but it would be like helping people. It's part of the get the word out part, is to say, hey, have you heard about this? Like we as board members should be sending out this one pager and helping, because it just, if it doesn't have a person, people do things when other people tell them about it. They don't always do it just because they heard about it. So there needs to be this, like, we really need, if we get 20 amazing grant proposals, all the rest of these steps we can do. Our biggest problem is generating the proposals. So that seems like the biggest thing. And I'm also worried because we're already behind, because we're supposed to do these first slide, that's page 9 and page 10 today. And so
I would just say, like, let's worry about the timeline, but I think first and foremost, let's worry about putting together a process that's gonna do a good job. And even if this process gets shortened this year, and it's the right process going forward, I think we are revamping the process that we follow. This is a different process what we're talking about than what we've done for the last couple of years, and I think for good reasons. But let's make sure that it's the right process, that we're not just getting too worried about the timeline just yet. I think we'll figure out a way to.
Does the county have set aside in the budget match for this year's grant proposals?
That's why I have been chasing down match
Yeah.
for the people that have approached about projects.
So they've either gonna come up with their own match.
So
or-
hopefully today we'll be able to brainstorm and we can talk about that and everyone can kind of bring forward their project ideas. And then somewhere in that match is a component. So,
well, there's
Yeah.
our project ideas, and then there's the public's project ideas. I mean,
Which is what I think we want to hear.
yeah, well, so it feels like to me that the next step is the call for
Right.
applicants
Mhm.
and doing the work to give them, entice them, and also give them the criteria so that they don't waste their time, or if they
Right,
don't
so our
qualify.
work is coming up with the criteria.
Yeah,
What do we
or
really,
boiling it down. I think the criteria is part of the grant, the depth.
well, it is, but
But also
also
part of our county's economic strategic.
with the trail
Yeah.
to tomorrow and all the things we've already decided we need, right?
Right. Well,
Because part of the
my head
grant is
hurts.
also hitting they has to have a need, there has to be a need for it.
So we're talking about putting together some sort of a call for proposals.
Right.
That includes the grant criteria from the state,
Right.
the amounts that are available, and a little bit about the strategic direction that we'll be evaluating them based upon, right? I mean, which
The
is
need for
essentially
it.
just a tie into the Trail to Tomorrows, and
Is
that's
there a
what's,
way to
that's
go
what's
with the
official at this
metrics out?
point. What's that?
Is there a way to tell what the metrics are?
The metrics for what? For, for our decision making?
Yes, because I think to Ashley's point, if they gotta know what they're trying to get and what is it worth their time, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I agree with that. Because I think from a business standpoint, if I might have all this great idea and it's gonna help, or I'm gonna create more jobs or whatever. But if I'm gonna put the work into it, I wanna know what the scorecard and the metric is gonna be.
And there's very clear info on that. So I'm on page 18 again of the packet. And this is just with rural county grant, but it's actually similar for the RCOG. There's 3 bullet points. I mean, what the grant is made for, right? Which is business recruitment, development, expansion, workforce training and development, and infrastructure, industrial building development, capital facilities, facilities improvements for business development. So that's what the state gives us. And certainly these any proposal needs to meet that criteria, otherwise we won't get it funded by the state, right?
Yeah, but
And
if
then
we-
beyond that, we can put what additional levels of filters or just sort of calls for it to meet strategic guidance.
And I think I would like for us to also put projects in the mix. And the reason why I would like to put projects in the mix is, for example, those bigger picture projects where if we get people who come forward and they just have a proposal, your proposal might be really great. And as we're reading that proposal, we might know of 2 other groups that are doing similar things that if they had funding as well, that together that would create something that's a lot more sustainable, has a lot more longevity, and is a lot more powerful. So in some of the conversations this week with some folks, there's some overlaps between EMS and search and rescue and USU and a couple of other organizations that would make for a really powerful package that would be amazing, right? But I don't think that they would ever be talking to each other to submit a proposal about, hey, what are the things that we could take time to do together?
Well, and what would be the governing entity of that collaboration, right?
Yes.
I mean, like, that's one of the problems here, like, just, let's bring up an old topic. What do we call it? Communal kitchen.
Mhm.
Like, first of all,
That's the proposal from Castle Valley. That's one of the ones that has been
We've been
presented.
approached- Both of us have been approached this week by.
okay, great. Well, so, like, these 3 bullet points are definitely kind of anywhere USA economic development.
Yeah.
They're not very Utah even, I think. They're just like, develop your businesses. Don't you need another warehouse? Or it's so,
Yes,
and,
but that's what we're gonna be judged on
I get it. No, I
competitively.
get it. We can't change them. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's too bad they aren't a little more,
That's what we get. to do.
whatever.
But
Well,
we
could
get to be
layer- we could
competitive.
layer- Okay, we're gonna, all right.
We get to
So-
win
so-
in those categories.
Okay, so just to help everyone think this through, let's use the communal kitchen idea for a minute. Who is going to build it? Who's in charge of it? Like, what
It
is the
depends,
entity?
because I
Well,
think
that was
these
always
guys
the
have
hang-up, but
probably
we're
been
finally-
talking about
we
one.
finally created-
Yeah,
Because we've been working and letting these things simmer for long enough, we're starting to have people come forward and say, I might be willing to host it, which is huge, because I would totally throw out there that, like, for me, one of the huge things that we need for any one of these proposals is a strong project partner
Mhm.
that we can trust with the state's money,
Yeah.
right? That we can trust with government money. So that's, I mean, I'm just in full agreement. Like, I think we're finding them, but that's not an easy
No,
task,
it's
right?
not easy.
and going back to, okay, so let's use communal kitchen for an example. There's a group in Castle Valley that wants a communal kitchen that made a great proposal yesterday. They had sent an email in to Ben Alter, and then Ben sent it out to us, and I talked to them yesterday. Amazing proposal. It might be that we say as a group, look, communal kitchen is perfect in Castle Valley at this location with this group, and they would be amazing. Might also be great in Moab in front of the 3 to 4 million consumers that we get. And it might be that if we had a refrigeration system and a truck that was going between those locations or whatever, there is a much larger play around a food system than just a communal kitchen. And $1 million can get us there, right? But it's us as a body looking at that holistically.
Right. There is a truck. Ken Minnie has a truck.
So Aaron.
But do you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's,
Are you, you're good? Okay.
Well, so then you're saying we just go with one giant project.
maybe,
Well,
or
what's good about it,
medium, or,
yeah,
but we
We're
should,
talking about here too.
yeah.
right?
They can be combined together, right,
Yeah.
for one.
There's something to be said for going for like one giant project.
But
because
also,
then
yeah,
it's
like the
worth it.
RCOG, just for, I mean, for everyone, that is made to be a big project. Like that one is not made to be divvied up among 8
Yeah.
little projects or
Right.
something.
Okay.
And that's
And
the one
how
that's
much-
up to $600,000. So the
Okay.
largest segment of what we're talking about that we're eligible to apply for this year is the competitive grant and the big grant,
Okay.
meaning we need a partner, an idea and a partner that can manage, you know, a big chunk of money. And we don't have to go for the whole 600,000. That is an option to apply for less, but we might just be given less, even if we apply for 600,000. But like,
Or
that's the big thing that
partners,
we're talking about.
right?
here.
Because it's possible that you might say, hey, listen, we want to create the leading paramedicine wilderness EMT training program that is administrated by the county and is funding EMS and search and rescue and Utah State. And do you see what I'm saying? Like, we don't need a partner. I feel what we need are really solid projects that we think would be great investments.
But some
And
of
then
this-
finding the appropriate partners or
Yeah.
partner to execute on that.
yeah, I see what you mean, but I think, like, for example, in the EMS world and in the wilderness training world, there are some really good experts that are kind of free floating in the universe. We could invite them to come be.
But
part
we've
of it.
got our EMT group who desperately would love to have EMT training here. And we
Right.
spoke with USU about it last week.
Okay, great. So
And we've
EMT
got a brand, like, okay,
Got it.
what young EMT person who is training and has to go through the certification course and can take that course anywhere?
Yeah,
Who wouldn't want to get a t-shirt that says I did that crap in Moab? And by the way, I mountain biked while I was there and I kayaked and I hiked and I whatever. And now we're filling classrooms. We're filling hotel rooms.
yeah,
We've got young EMT trainees buying breakfast burritos.
yeah,
That's a big, to me, like, that's a big
yeah, and we'll.
hit for a competitive brand.
So the people that provide the actual training, either, so,
Our EMT folks, they wanted,
no, I get it, but there are, like, for wilderness first responders, there's Wilderness Medicine Associates and Wilderness
Yep.
Medicine Institute, right? And so one thing I'm thinking about is inviting one
you're
of
thinking
those two.
UC Irvine.
Well, whatever, but whoever, inviting whoever to be the partner in that, because that gives the whole project credibility. That's one idea. But so, okay, well, the chamber needs a small amount for a summit. And it is gonna be a scrappy bootstrap summit. They're not gonna be fancy name tags. There's not gonna be a fancy website. We're not gonna fly in a bunch of speakers that we don't need to hear from. It's gonna be very much a convening of Moab businesses and an opportunity to talk. So we don't qualify for the RCG, but we might qualify for the other one. Right, sorry, you're right, other way around. So
But for next year, 2026.
it's gonna be in November of this year, if possible. And
Money won't come till after that.
well, maybe that's okay.
Okay.
And Deborah is helping me with that.
Yeah.
So that's one tiny, like $40,000, not
So,
800.
no, and I
So-
love that.
Forrest and Brittany
Um,
and the mayor.
we've been talking about the partnership involving USU, so I want to make sure people know that Christian Olson is here from USU. Aaron and Brittany are new members of this board, in case you hadn't met them.
Good to meet you.
And I wanted to go back, Brittany, to your question about metrics. I think that there are really good examples of metrics, both for the RCG and the RCOG. The work that Moab Community Childcare has done in securing the rural county grants has been brilliantly put together with an explanation of expenses, where they go, what the outcomes are. They've been very focused on putting together what is essentially a sustainability plan. And at the last meeting, we just, or a couple meetings ago, the decision was made that this would be the last year of RCG funding for Moab Community Childcare. But if you look at those applications and the reports that they do, you can see that they've been thinking about the metrics ahead of time. They're providing their own, and that makes the decision easy for the board to make. And in terms of the opportunities grant, the Moab Area Community Land Trust with the Arroyo Crossing project, it's done exactly the same thing. Financial forecasts, different phases of the project, and they've been really smart about promoting their progress throughout. So I think that, not saying that anyone needs to go read those, but they are examples of very persuasive arguments for funding of those projects. And I'm sure that they'd be available. But I would assume that everybody else would agree that the reason that those two programs have had that kind of success is because of the lead partner and the diligence in which they put together a business plan.
So,
Yeah.
so piggybacking off of that, I agree with like everything you just said as far as the projections and stuff like that. And I have 4 nieces that have worked for Moab childcare or community childcare. So, but I think of the impact there, right? The impact went deep and pretty strong.
Exactly.
And it was very measured along the way. Same thing with Royal Crossing. So when I look at like something like you guys were just talking about, I'm like, that's a one and done. Did we get a bunch of impact out of that? I don't know. I'm hoping it does, right? But then when I hear something like that, where it's more sustainable, long-term, and it's gonna have that huge impact, I kind of, I think we need to think more around impact versus, just surface level, this person needs the money.
Well, that's how we have to come up
Exactly.
with our criteria.
Exactly.
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
gonna have the most long-term impact for sure.
Yeah.
I was just, I'm listening to this and I'm like, we don't have any staff. And like releasing, going to the public, throwing your, like, where are these emails going? Right? And I'm hearing, we work with like private market, small people. And then we have these institutions like USU. And I'm just wondering, like EMS, like, should we be more thinking like, hey, let's keep it simple because we, don't have this thing. Can we like, there doesn't have to be a public hearing where we like have to like take everybody's bid in consideration. We can just narrow it down to like, we could just choose USU today, could we? And just say no one else, or does that have to be a process where we have to?
I don't
Look
think
at
that there's
everybody's-
any legal requirement that says we
That's a
can't
great
do what you
question.
just said. I do think we've received some guidance informally from the commission and the county attorney to have it be more inclusive than that.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, no,
without
no,
the staff,
I
I'm like,
hear you.
oh, whose
I-
email is good?
I think we have to be really thoughtful about that as we think about a process. I do think
Yes.
that like, just for a matter of like, I'm looking at the clock a little
Yeah.
bit. We do have plenty of time still, which is great. But I also want to make sure that by the time that clock ticks out to our meeting out, we've accomplished something to take us to the next step here. And I mean, I'm thinking we're having conversations about what I would sort of put in like 3 different steps of what we're doing here, which is like a public call, some sort of like public information we're putting out there, creating like requirements or sort of like the guidance there. I mean, and then some of what we're getting into is also like how we're going to make the decision, because ultimately, like some of it, like, is this project, does it offer deep and lasting economic impact? That's a decision we're gonna make once we have the projects in front of us, right? So we don't have to do that today, which is great, right? We can do that a little bit later on. But what we do, I think, want to accomplish today is have some sense of what like the basic process is going to be and get ready or like have steps in motion towards some sort of whatever public information we want to put out there, like a plan for how it's going to get put out there, who's going to help write it, what's the review process, does it need to come back here, do we have to make a motion and approve it later on, or are we like okay to just kind of go forward with it? I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think just would be really useful to accomplish today, if possible.
And it may be overly ambitious, but what I did in the process proposal that I sent out is that there are public feedback pieces along the way, because I want to get back to you, what you said, it's really important, is ultimately we could just choose the end of the process, one group, and we would help them and there would be guardrails and we would make sure that that project happened effectively. But what I love about, at least for sure at the top end of the funnel, is that the more people that give input, which is why I'm hesitant to even say, we don't necessarily want people putting grant proposals together so much as we want a lot of ideation and a lot of input. Is the perfect example is in the brief conversations, even with the EMS stuff, and that's not even talking about the Castle Valley food commercial kitchen things, which was amazing what they presented. Carrie McKay, for example, who is she with the foundation?
Yeah, the Moab Community Healthcare.
One conversation, and Carrie McKay had the funding, the match funding. She identified a grant that would be available to fund the USU EMT training program. So that would be matching funds, and that's just a person on the ground doing research saying, hey, I'm here to provide funding for these types of services and activities. Here's this grant, this would be available, so that they would have matching funds. You would never find that if you don't have that really great community input. So how formal it needs to be, I don't know, but I love the idea of getting as much feedback as possible early on. And then later on, I just think it makes it more difficult.
So we should do one right away, that's kind of more open.
I think so, and then I put in the process, whether or not we would want to do it that way, but I put in different checks along the way too. To let the public know, all right, we've narrowed it down to these things. So now you may be disappointed because your proposal is no longer in the running. But what you may have is really great input or 3 people who are really expert at doing the 2 things that we did pick. You know what I mean? So like I said, it may be too ambitious, but the reason why I put those gates in there is because at each stage along the decision-making process, even as we start to narrow down, I think that we might find that there are community members that have a lot of input or have something to add to that project that has been chosen. But I don't know, because like I said, it was prepared to pick apart.
So does that mean like you would put out? Like, how would the public get more involved, or what, did you already put that in here that I missed it?
No, it's so like with the first one, for example, coming out of this meeting, we would do a call for proposals. And some of my suggestions are, you know, you put them on the county website, social media, Chamber of Commerce, you know, just the usual suspects, not limited to those, but just broad suggestions. And then accept the project proposals for a period of time, like a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And then schedule a special meeting to allow the public to come and make those proposals. So that we can listen. So maybe you don't want to write a grant application, but maybe you want to do what the folks from Castle Valley did, which is just take an hour and talk about, you know, what's being done with food and what's, you know.
Maybe we need to limit it.
Yeah.
And some of them can definitely go on and on.
Yeah, wouldn't it be faster actually if we did this,
I don't think it's an hour.
call for proposals at this macro level, high level proposals? You don't have to tell it, like you have to basically remotely qualify, but like, so we aren't inhibiting creativity. We call for these high level proposals and then we look at them and then we decide who we want to ask to put together, like.
I
Thank
put that in the process.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that idea. That's not gonna happen, or that doesn't meet our criteria at this time. Yeah, but here are the ones that do meet our criteria, whatever those are, the ones that we think are gonna be most impactful and most like the idea hangs together and it's whatever, gonna work. Then we ask those people to come and present, not everyone who submits, because that way we've added a layer of like, yeah, then we don't have to.
Yes, we
Management.
put it out everywhere right now, like
Right.
food.
Yeah.
And then we get all the information back, we look at it, and we invite them to come and speak. That way they can speak and we can ask questions
Right.
and really get an idea. of
And
what
we
it
can
is.
even coach them a little, like the ones that we choose, we can then say, okay, to qualify for this program, you're gonna need these things. If they say, oh, I'm out, I can't do that, that gets rid of that one. But if they say, yeah, I could do that, I mean, it comes down to the solid partners, you know? And that is really the biggest challenge because some of these ideas, like if you aren't, it's sort of a chicken and egg problem. Like if you're not running a commercial kitchen already or a communal kitchen, then how do we know you're gonna be able to do it? Not to mention manage a construction project of $1 million. So, right? And but that would be like, that's where we could maybe help fine tune these good ideas and like you were saying before, match up other partners or say, you could do this if this nonprofit got involved or this for-profit, whatever, like if this business was involved helping you.
And
Then
honestly, a lot of those conversations, like, will push someone to maybe be qualified next year.
Sure.
Right? I think very.
Sure, it's an
few
investment.
Organizations that we have initial contact with are going to be able to be ready this year.
Exactly,
for
but if
like
we don't
prime
start
time.
it this year, then we don't have them for next year.
Well,
But
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But I also want to just acknowledge that the work that members of this board have been doing to do outreach and help generate those
Has been
proposals for this year has been happening. And we have a pipeline that's like, I think I totally agree and think we should open it up more. And we've been doing a lot of good work to like make sure that we are building up project partners over time with this stuff. So I think both, and that's right in line with what Melissa's talking about. I mean, in terms of a process, I think we talk about an open call and we're talking about some targeted meetings to invite additional applications, right? I mean, it's all just about doing outreach in a fair, big way, but also a way where we're identifying really good project partners.
Well, and it's what you were saying, Aaron, like starting on the ones we think might be most likely. Like the communal kitchen seems like it has some, right? And this, whatever we're calling it, EMS training thing, has some oomph. So it seems like we should be encouraging those two groups to keep going or whatever. And then we should also do the call for other ideas at the same time. So that way we're still generating these ideas.
Do we want to talk about the pipeline? And talk about what's out there so that we know kind of the
Yes.
shape and what we have?
Yes, tell us.
And then,
Wait 1 second.
Yeah.
Should we do that, or should we, and maybe we can do both, but should we talk about how we're, what's on this one pager for call for proposals and how we're going to get that accomplished? Because I think we can talk about the pipeline later if we need to. If we want to get that out this
We have to
month,
do it right now.
then we need to
Right.
focus energy on that part of the
We should.
conversation.
We should, because I feel like you don't know what's out there. Yeah, I know that there's some
We know
group
some of
that
what's out
has
there.
like, oh,
We don't
well,
know
I
everything.
have this idea and that's great.
Yeah.
But you don't know until you put it out there. But what I would like just from the perspective of like just me being frustrated in the past of just not knowing, I think it's important that we get it out to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But yeah, I like the idea of the one pager. Here you go, here's what you know. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
right.
So.
So what do you want to do?
That one
Pull up your Canva.
No, I think, man,
Yeah.
I think that's super relevant because if we're on this abbreviated timeline, like, we need to have something, some sort of call for proposals out by Friday. Is the
Right.
realistic timeline we're working up against. So anything we can come up with to have submission deadline, scope of the project, and even just a minimal grading rubric that would be considered by the
targets.
board.
That it has to hit.
I think the two, I'm with you 100%. And I think what we should do is maybe define what that one pager says, and then we should also be able to attach the one pagers from GoEO of the RCG and the
The
RCOG.
description.
I think that's great. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we want
So link to,
a bite, a snack, and a
Uh-huh.
meal.
yes,
And the meal should include all of that documentation from the governor's office, so that anyone that's really gonna dive into this can go in there and do all that homework on their own.
Yep.
So that we're not trying to like communicate this complex topic over email.
yes, because it's got all the info in it, and like, we need to come up with our own grading matrix, but I feel like they're the best place to start, because when it says right in their one sheeter, you have to have matching funds. Great, well, maybe that's showstopper for some people, or, you know. what I
Be
mean?
careful, because matching funds can come from a lot of different places, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, as you said, if we have great ideas, we can.
Well, if we have a whole room full of people with ideas,
Yeah,
they might connect with each other.
match each other.
Yeah.
So, thanks for getting that started, Quinn. That's like part of the list. I mean, you just did, I think, part of making the list of what needs to be on the one pager. You know, submission deadline requirements, as Melissa said, link to GoEO pages. We need to talk about probably a little bit of what we want to put out there. I mean, in very brief format of what our decision-making rubric timeline, like the process around decision-making that we're going to follow will be for them. And I mean, some of that we can, timeline, I think we can kind of say, like, is pretty clear, but how we're going to filter this process through, like, we need to be able to say that to them. And then the thing I would add is, this is that like kind of more high-level piece, but like the introduction, like the goal. I mean, and it's not just the state's goal, right? It's like our goal as a county for what we're trying to do with these funds. And that's also should be like enticing to people, right? I mean, you have an idea to improve the economy of the region, whatever.
Oh my gosh, okay. Well, I have an idea to improve the economy of the region. Let's run it through this process. It's gonna be tricky. So,
But the thing is though, and this is where I do think we need to be careful.
Yeah.
Is those 4 things that you were saying are super, super boring and can be any town USA.
right,
That's the only matrix, because it's a competitive grant.
No, I
So when
get it.
I think about it,
Don't think so. We are also making decisions. So.
but we are
We're
making
part of-
decisions about what to put forward to the people who are actually making a decision about the money.
no, I get it. I'm not pushing back against the matrix.
We gotta do both.
Yeah, we have to do both,
Right.
and we can. I'm not pushing back. I'm just saying, like. Do you have an idea of, like, when you look at this as a business business owner, like who, the universe of all the people that could apply, okay? So so if you're a business owner and you have an idea to grow your business, that is the traditional thing. That's the like, what are you gonna do to grow your business? Well, I need a bigger building and a bigger warehouse and and then I could be churning out more widgets and grow my business and hire more people. That's the traditional way, right? So we're not, and it would be interesting to look at people where they've spent this money in the past few years, and maybe you guys have, I don't know. But like who got this money last time and how did they get it and what did they do? And so because I think we are different and we have to kind of match, we have to still compete in the criteria that they've laid out. I'm not pushing back against that. I'm just saying, how do we ask the question in a way that will generate some ideas? Okay, so for example, this idea is really the very opposite of the business one. So the chamber's been working on this idea of this OHV initiative, and that initiative, we might be able to get some funding through Tread Lightly for it. It would probably be run through the motorized committee of the Grand County Motorized Committee. And if the money can't go through them, it would have to go through a nonprofit, like Right with Respect, yeah. So, but then the project is to identify beginner, intermediate, advanced routes that are on already existing trails, open roads, no NEPA required, and then promoting those so that Moab would be welcoming the OHV community and better guiding them and proactively managing their experience so that they have a good time. And so will that help economic development in Moab? Definitely. Is it a one-time thing? Not really, because you've got these trails then going forward, all the, like not at all. It's an infrastructure investment kind of thing. And we don't have a budget yet and we probably won't for this year. So this is probably for next year. I don't know. We'll see. And does it have matching funds? Yes. But so so then if you say, okay, communal kitchen idea. Okay, you've got that, you say there's a group. Who are they? Who are these folks and what are they? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a for-profit? What is it?
But are you?
That's what I'm
trying
saying,
to
like,
generate
when you-
ideas?
No, I'm trying to think about how do we ask the
Okay, but I
question?
love
How do we
that.
format the question? So I'm saying, these are, if you look at some of these
We need to let
ideas,
people know that this is not just for businesses.
right,
Okay,
that's what I was
Who
asking.
are the eligible entities?
Yes.
It could be businesses, nonprofits.
So
We
are
can
we
really say. or other
Flying up at the
organizations.
20,000
with
foot
our-
view though, I would like to even go above that and then go to that and then go to that. So just structure. Number one, it doesn't need to be a group who comes to us and applies and then we give it to them. It literally, in a lot of cases, is the county saying, we need money for an economic strategic plan. We need money for, we're gonna sell our garbage to somebody else to do whatever, and here's what that's gonna do, right? So Chris, to your point, it can literally be anyone or just someone with an idea, because it could be as boring as our county saying, we need to sell our solid waste and get rid of it somehow because whatever, and here's how it's gonna help our economy. So what I loved about what Ashley was saying and the really boring matrix is, I'm almost thinking of this as like a Google form where you say, what is your big idea? And then you tell us how it fits into one of these 4 boring things.
Yeah, it's
How does it create jobs? How
Yeah.
does it, whatever, right? And then you do that thinking yourself. So it's, here's my big idea. Here's whatever. Here's how I would execute on it or what other partnerships that I would need. I think we should also ask them then, what's missing? Like, what would be your greatest challenge? And we can just kind of take them through a Google form so that by the time that they get out to the end of it, we kind of have a good idea of going, hey, here's their big picture vision. Here's how it fits within what the state's going to be grading on, or what we think is interesting.
So if we were just looking for ideas, that's exactly how I would do it. But I think what you've already stated is we're looking for 2 different things, which is ideas on the one hand, which maybe we can help piece together into a project or maybe not. But other than that, separate from that, we're looking for partners with project proposals. And to me, that's actually the #1 priority.
But
Because I really think if we don't have partners who are able to do these things, the ideas, they're just gonna float around.
With
I
this
don't
timeframe.
disagree with you, like, I like the idea and I'd love to do both. But like, if we're gonna try to do both, let's make sure we're not creating a process that favors just like the real abstract without making sure we're like also really calling for like.
well, the abstract won't
Partners
make
and
it through the
projects.
our first screening.
As
If
long
it's
as, yeah,
too abstract and they don't have, like, the part about who is gonna spend the money, I mean, I just lived through the chamber getting one of these grants. And when the chamber was considered reliable and the chamber kind of went, woo, you know, so now we're refixing the chamber. At a nice pace, by the way. But so this part about the reliable partner is mission critical. However, to meet the goal of spreading the word and telling everyone about this and letting everyone know about this and hearing their great ideas, I don't see how it hurts to do what Melissa just said, put it out there, give us your great idea. At the same time, because this conversation with this board has been going on, and there is a pipeline that they're gonna report to us more about in a minute after we solve this problem, but there are some projects that have reliable partners and that have and that are a little further along. So, but by doing both, by putting it out there and saying, give us your big idea, if the proposal comes back and it's got, we have a nonprofit already created, or this is gonna go through the county motorized committee, or this is gonna go through. Rogers
Who's your
Inspector.
project sponsor?
Yeah, and so how are you gonna do this? And if they already have those things, and those things are viable entities, then they rise to the level of, okay, we're gonna consider this, or we're gonna help nurture these people so that they can really have their act together next year or whatever.
So I have a question about
yeah,
that.
please.
So let's say that we create a little document and we get it out there as far as marketing goes. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through like a little process, but bear with me and it will make sense in a minute. So I spoke with an 18-year-old kid the other day. I'm asking him what he's gonna do because he's about to graduate. He's like, you know, I'm starting my lawnmower or my landscaping business and blah, blah, blah. So we're talking about that. And he goes, Grandpa's gonna give me $50,000, but I gotta come up with some more to be able to start this company because I gotta buy all of this equipment. I'm working on this HOA and I'm working on all these different
Getting
clients,
contacts,
right?
yeah.
So he's doing a fantastic job. And he's like, but the concern I have is what if I get sick or what, my mom's not going out to mow the lawn, right? So there's a lot of things that are a part of that. So let's say I'm 18 years old, I have this big idea and I see this little thing out there somewhere. And granted, there's not really a partner. So like right now, what I'm hearing is like, oh, well, grandpa has 50,000, but that's not an established partner. Does that make sense?
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to understand is, are we trying to get all of those types of people? Or are we going, no, thank you, we want a bigger project? Because we don't want this 18-year-old kid right now to do this, go do school or do
I mean, my
something.
answer to that would be that, and this is just my answer,
Mhm.
would be that the smaller the quantity of money, the less
Impact.
rigor we
Gotcha.
put on the project, the strength of the project partner. Like, could we find, if we have this $200,000, which is the smaller grants, could that be subdivided out into a $3,000 grant that goes to a startup? I think it's reasonable.
Years
An
ago, we did that.
$8,000, maybe,
Okay,
a $50,000 grant to a startup that has no track record. That sounds crazy to me personally. You guys might disagree and we might all vote to do it sometime, but like,
but
You know,
would
I
it
don't know,
go
that's how
back to
I
like
would
the
think about
community
it.
needs?
So it's hard to.
Because there is one.
You see what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah.
we gotta look at it from a standpoint of how is it gonna help our community
Totally.
in general. Now, granted, that's a big one, or let's say another plumber, right? I mean, you probably we need more. You know what I'm saying? So we're trying to, what community impact, not just one project, and I agree with you on that. But if I'm sitting there going matching funds, you got 50, now you've got an entire business. And a kid that wants to stay in Moab, that's a big deal. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
there's value.
Now, no, I'm not saying that that's like
Oh, yeah.
100% thing, but I'm just trying to point out, like, if we make this little program or this, hey, do you want to apply? We gotta at least weed those people out to not waste their time.
Right.
And go, no, you're too small, we don't want you, but we gotta have that conversation with them before they go, sweet, grant money, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't think it's a throw out though. I think that with after you look at all of the ideas that come in and what can actually happen, which ones can go forward, it could be split up. It doesn't have to be all. It doesn't have to be all. It could be all the money goes to one thing. It could be that the money goes to separate things, it just, we have to get, besides the pipeline that they already have, we still need to get ideas in. So
And
no matter
so-
what, and I think that
Right.
that 18-year-old kid's valid for,
What would be really
An idea.
cool, like just thinking about this, like not just being a one-off process, but an iterative process, because we're gonna do this every year, right? What would be really cool would be to have one or two success stories like that are these really small things that are, startups or something like that, that we do think are, the best ones and are worthy of funding. And then a couple really big things that get funded this year, and then have some like newspaper stories written about them. And so like, if we
Okay.
can continue to get the word out, then it becomes easier next year when we try to do this.
I have a small cautionary tale about that. Remember those diversification grants that went to certain little businesses and other businesses got mad that they got those grants?
yeah,
biggest
we're
thing is
putting it
no
out
one-
there for
I
everybody.
get it,
but
I
no
get
one
it, but
even
if you already own a landscape, I'm just being, I never played this role. But I'm being the devil's advocate for a hot minute.
Yeah.
If you already own a landscaping business in Moab and suddenly you have this competitor that you didn't have the night before, who just got
You don't have a competitor.
$20,000. Okay,
There's so much need for.
there's so much,
landscapers.
and that may, you may be totally right. It's just that there is a sort of greater good component of this. Like, how can we give the money to make the most impact for everyone in the community? And
That's a
maybe
little bit of a phrasing of like, that's that big picture language that I think we put right up top. Is like, what are we trying to do? Like, our
Yeah.
goal is to bring this, money into Moab in a way that does the greatest good for the regional economy.
But we
something like
also
that.
our goal might also be to support young entrepreneurs. And so how could we do, like, what if we, and we can't solve everything all at once, but maybe there is a portion of it where we are gonna support young entrepreneurs, and maybe we give them $10,000. This is like we give 5 young entrepreneurs $10,000, not 50, right?
Right.
But the other thing that I hear in what you're telling, that story too, is what are we doing? And this is maybe something the chamber's working on, is how do we help that guy understand what's gonna happen when he gets sick? Like, how do we help him get comfortable hiring employees and making a business strategy that he feels more solid about? Like, how do we, like, maybe there's an education piece of supporting entrepreneurs or advisors or something. There's a whole nother
That's
part
like
of that.
other.
Totally
resources.
different, but if we're gonna start throwing around $10,000 all over the place or more than that, we might want a system that supports those
I just
people.
think that sometimes the impacts, $10,000 in certain places can make a giant impact
Mhm.
versus, $800,000 impact in one space. And I'm not saying that that's not fair, like, that makes sense, but there's a couple of things out there that I look at and I'm like, we have a declining, population when it comes to our schools and different stuff. And if we have, abilities to help them stay here and really make an impact later down the road, I do like the idea of maybe having, some sort of, even a small amount be for a specific group like that.
And that could be from the rural county grant.
Here they would have to.
Typically.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm still learning how all this works, but I'm just trying to
It's
get an
possible.
idea.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, we just have to be very deliberate.
I think if we start carving it up, we're gonna have a lot of different like interest groups asking us to carve them this and carve them that.
I don't know that, like, I
That's
think
scary.
we wanna make good decisions about the best projects after we've created a nice, good open call.
But I
My
think we can
biggest
also tie that
concern-
to the trail to tomorrow.
Exactly, that's.
It
what I'm
has to, because, and I think that that's my hang up too with the trail to tomorrow and why we do need to get on that with the county commission. And either workshop that or something, because in all of those grants, it says that aligns with your strategic economic development
That's all we
plan.
really have.
We do not yet have one.
Right.
And that makes it so much more complicated when we do stuff like this, because it is an open
Yeah,
conversation.
that should be the criteria.
So, and then and it makes it easy, because then we never have to talk about the criteria again, because it is in that
We take it from the document.
economic development plan. So that's my first thing. And my second thing is, and again, this isn't a direction, it's just me carving out my comfort zone to say, we don't have a budget for economic development. So that doesn't mean that the commission won't give us one, or that there isn't one on the horizon, or that one might write in 2026. But I just want to make sure that if there is almost $1 million at stake to invest as an investment in this economy, that we're looking at it through that filter. And it may be young kids out with fun, like literally no opinion about that. I just am really strong about saying, wow, we've got almost $1 million to invest in our economy. And there's nothing else right now that's written into the plan. Like, let's get it done.
So Aaron, you have something?
I was gonna bring up that Trail to Tomorrow if that needs to be passed. I was looking through all that the other day, but I also, I mean, I know I'm the new guy, but it seems like we're trying to build an institution and we don't have the processes to build that institution. But we do have partners in the community, like USU has small business development. Right? Like, and I'm just like, what other institutions are already out there doing stuff? I just want to throw that 2 cents out there. Like, it's like, we're kind of like flat, like, we don't even have an economic development plan, right? Like the next, can that be put on the agenda next?
Well, we've
next-
been working on it. We just haven't.
Yeah,
we
but it
just
seems
haven't
like
gotten
that's
it quite
like a
to the
major,
finish line.
that's like a major thing, but like who's editing that? We don't have a Ben that's like editing that plan anymore, so like,
Chris.
Well, yeah, but it would have taken, I mean, and Ben worked on it too, and it would take someone to move that through a county process. I mean, so I think just to be totally honest, like, without an economic development department,
So,
we barely have the capacity to administer these grants,
Right.
like as well as we want to. I don't think we have the capacity to rewrite county code, like just all of us around the table without any staff support. I mean, that's,
Well, we
and I
haven't
know
started,
this was,
though.
yeah, we can start, but like,
But
let's
haven't
just be
we- isn't
honest.
this
So
what we
like, oh
already
yeah,
done?
we've started,
Yeah,
but
we
like,
have something, but.
we don't have a finished product and we won't if we don't have support from the county. I just want to be really clear about that. Like, that's the decision that the county commission did not make this decision because they wanted to cut us. I understand that. But one of the impacts of making a decision that leaves us without economic development money is that we don't have capacity to get us to the place we need to be. Do you have the criteria to make the decisions about stuff? Like, we're in a difficult situation. And I think I'm not blaming anyone, but I think we have to acknowledge that that's just the reality of the situation. And trying to do it all is going to be like,
So are you looking for a volunteer to write up what we're looking to get from you? I mean, because I could probably do that.
yes, I am. But we're also talking about a rewrite of the general plan in the county.
Oh,
So
So that's the bigger, like, that's what I think what we're saying, yeah, just to give a little bit of background, so like. What we're saying, it would be great if we're, we need a criteria for evaluating these projects. We have one from the state, but it's kind of just meh, we'd rather have to be something that was more appropriate for us in Grand County. And we did a strategic planning process that the county paid for, that's created the Trail to Tomorrow, right? That was supposed to move in that direction. It did move in that direction, but it's not perfect. It's not, and it's adopted, or it was received by the county, but it has not been adopted by the county in an official way, right? And so what we as a board have been working on for the last several months is creating language that would update the economic component of the county's general plan that incorporates that findings from Trail to Tomorrow, makes it succinct, and also makes it more appropriate for Moab. If we had something like that that's been approved by the county, then it would be really easy to say, you've got an idea, like, it needs to fit the state's requirements, but it also needs to fit into the county's economic strategy.
And the county doesn't have an economic strategy right now, because there's like 2 sentences in the general plan about the economic strategy. And we've been trying to fill that gap. And that's the document that we have, everyone worked on, and we've been pushing and trying to get to the finish line. But we were expecting to have staff to help us get it through to the commission in a way that was
It's just
appropriate.
the language in the general plan right now is out of date and called for a strategic planning process that would update the general plan. So like, the last time they did a rewrite of the general plan language on the economy, they asked for the Trail to Tomorrow process. Now we've got it. And then they said, and then after that, we should rewrite the general plan, right? And so that's
tell
what
me
that's
what
what we'd
it
like
changes
to.
if that happens, like for.
It gives this more guidelines. It tells us, like, so we know what the state requires, blah, 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 plain vanilla economic development.
Mhm.
USA.
Anytime USA, economic development. And so,
Then we would match potential projects against the
Well, and
strategy of
it
the.
says
see if they
in the
fit.
state plan, the reason why GOEO's language is really generic and really vanilla is because it says, you know, does it do workforce development? Does it do, is it in alignment with your strategic plan?
Right.
Well, we don't know.
because we don't have one right now, and we're trying to do the work
I
to
mean, we
get
have
that
something.
done.
We can,
We-
but we
right,
don't have.
something,
We'll get there.
But we haven't gotten it,
Mel,
It
can
hasn't
we
been
just put
adopted.
something on the agenda and just do it?
So in Castle
Well,
Valley,
absolutely,
I
but
mean,
it's not
confused,
done.
right,
Yeah.
agenda.
yeah, if we spent, I mean, I think it's really close, and I'm willing to work on that a little bit more. To try to get it to a place where we could share it with the commission. I mean, that's the next step. And I think it needs to be shared in kind of workshop form. We don't want to put it on the agenda yet because we want them
I'm
to
just
see
saying,
it and.
could the commission just do
Yeah,
what
but-
their goals are? Or, I mean, I would like to
Well,
be a
so
chart, or I
the
would like to be a part of
general
that.
The general plan has to go through process.
Oh,
And then
okay.
goes through planning commission. In Castle Valley, our planning
Public hearing.
our volunteer
Gotcha.
planning commissioners pretty much write the entire general plan and
Mhm.
then submit it and put it out to public hearing.
And that's
So,
all
like-
like on the county versus.
So we would have to, we have to get it to the
planning.
planning commission.
It's supposed to be the one that recommends the general plan. So we would have to do this, finish the project. Give it to planning and zoning, they would have to agree, say, yes, this is good, and then it would come before the commission, is the way that it is done.
Interesting.
And I think it's interesting that the planning and zoning has to sign off an economic development strategy, but that's what our general plan, I mean, but that's what it
I
says.
did not know that.
Yeah, so the only people
We
that
have
can
not
make
seen
changes
it.
there.
Well, that's because no one's ever given you the economic development
And I've
plan
been-
to sign off on.
Zoning.
I think that we should work towards getting that to these guys. And then we can see what happens, even without a staff. I think we're
Yeah.
close enough, but that's another
Okay.
topic. But we could try to,
Sounds like you need to set a workshop.
well, we have had a
special
couple,
session.
We've got a couple.
but
we
maybe
probably need to.
with you.
If we want, I mean, if we want to move it.
I keep hearing we only
we're
have
gonna need
3
to
meetings.
Set aside time to work on it.
Maybe
Yeah.
need another one.
We could do a workshop to try to, and we could share that with the new members, what we've got so far and see what y'all think. It's really, you know, it's. I think it's really good, but that's the whole point, is getting it to the point that we can see what other people think of it.
Yeah.
But, so there's that, which is a whole nother problem, but the reason it came up is because it guides the criteria that we're trying to set for these goals, and it sort of helps answer this question like, well, how much money would we give to small entrepreneurs versus a macro project that could affect the whole county? That's the whole,
But the adoption of all that
Yeah,
isn't gonna fit the timeline for this year.
no, I get it,
I
we're
mean,
not gonna have
that's
time.
not gonna make sense.
That's right.
In the general plan at the moment fits with, I mean, you could use it.
We just have to, I mean, we have to, right?
We have to,
Yeah.
and it uses it, and it talks about small vendors and retail clusters, street vendors and food courts, you know, craft breweries, and then low impact live work studios. It's huge, which, I mean, it's still gonna be huge, even the general plan piece that you guys are working on is still really broad.
Yeah.
You know, but it's youth mentoring programs, you know, but I mean, it does state in here that we need a new strategic, it does say that, develop an economic master plan that considers
Right.
all partners. But there is, I mean, there's stuff in here right now that would work for this year, and we can continue with it.
And the other option for this year is to just tie it straight to Trail of Tomorrow, right? Which is something that hasn't been like formally adopted as the strategy, but it's a county project. I mean, it's not like that's just someone off the street saying this stuff, right? The county
at least
paid for
a-
those consultants to do
Yeah.
that work, go out to the community, have the input sessions, like, I mean, it was an inclusive process for a reason, and we can, I think we have to use it. I mean,
Well,
we've got to do both, actually, but like,
yeah,
we got to move forward. with
no,
this.
I think we need to finish this application for the big ideas.
Yeah.
Okay,
And let's go back to that, because we have a little guidance problem. We're not gonna resolve it before we have to get this application out. We can use what's in there for now. I think we do need to go back to working on that, adding, getting to the point that we're, and because I do think the problem is Trails to Tomorrow is just so general, and the work that we've done to boil it down is really valuable, and I think we should get it to the finish line, but we could maybe schedule a workshop to finish that in the next month or something. But for today, let's finish this application.
okay, so how do you guys feel about these 4 buckets as a starter? Tell me what they need differently and what we need to add or take away. Is we ask people, what's your big idea? And I'm not suggesting that we use this language. I promise we can wordsmith the crap out of it, but basically you start with, what's your big idea? And then with the list of the criteria, you say, how does it fit in with this criteria? Like, how does it develop the economy or help train the workforce or create additional jobs or whatever? I don't know, the criteria is in there. And then what's the impact? So to Brittany's question, what do you think that this is gonna provide to our community? And then tell us a little bit about your ability to deliver. Who's your sponsoring organization? What have you done that's similar? Who is the grandparent that's gonna give you $50,000? Just tell us a little bit more about why you were in a great position to deliver this type of a project. And then maybe we ask them like, what are your showstoppers? What do you think are your biggest risks or your biggest challenges or your biggest speed bumps?
I mean, I think you just wrote. the
I think
Google-
that's great.
The Google Doc that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the call for applications, right? But that's the form that
That's
you want.
But I
to
think
fill out.
that's like the, and then we look at it and we go, okay, not this one, maybe this one, whatever.
Perfect, so yeah, I mean, would you be willing to take a crack at?
I will
writing that,
draft
setting
it,
up as a
and then
Google
I would send it out to
Yeah.
the group as a Google Doc and then provide comment spaces so that
Okay,
people can
amazing.
give
That's
feedback,
perfect.
cause this needs to be wordsmithed, but I think like buckets, if those work as buckets.
So I do have one more question
Okay,
on that.
yes.
So then if somebody sees this,
Yes,
they then what?
okay, so then maybe we have
No,
links
this
in
is
there
the-
to the
that is the
doohickeys.
document That we send people to.
That's
to-
the link.
Yeah,
Yep.
we
But it's
say-
not the call for application.
We have a separate document that we need to still talk about and create. That's the call for applications.
Okay,
And then on there is a link that says.
That goes
you know,
to
Fill
this.
out this, if you're interested, fill out this form, and it takes you to Melissa's form.
So we have link to the the GOEO website that's going to go to these grants, the both of them. So we're gonna talk about, so we need to talk about how to, we differentiate the two grants on our call to action. Or are we just gonna put it out there really big and broad?
Do you know
and then
what?
we will figure out where it fits in there when we have that.
I think big.
Big
the
and
same.
broad, because
Yeah,
we
simple.
know,
Yeah.
and then we can sort and filter, like
Mm.
behind the scenes,
But
we
it's
would
kind of like,
go.
what is this? Because if you're gonna send them links to, they need to know
Yeah.
the names of the
We just
grants.
need to-
they're
Yes,
gonna read
no,
about,
for sure.
right?
Like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, and again, wordsmithing, like, please don't, but I'm just thinking, what we do is you've got like cute little social media places on the website, some copy, and it says, we have money and are looking for your big ideas to accomplish economic development for Grand County. Click here to read more, and then we give them the RCG and the RCOG one-sheeters, they gotta read those. And then after they read those, and we say, are you still interested? Fill out this application. Tell us your big idea.
Let's call it the
Tell us-
pre-application.
Yeah.
Something.
That's a good.
Fill out this,
Qualification.
interest
Sure.
form.
Intent to apply.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know if it should be intent to apply. I think it
Apply,
should
but
be
here-
like,
here-
Like a
expression of
pre-application.
interest.
Yeah.
Expression of interest, maybe.
Perfect.
Are you
That way-
interested?
Because what we're slicing and dicing here is we don't want to make people do all this homework and write this giant grant that's not
Right.
gonna work. And, but we
I
also
mean,
want to be really broad and encouraging.
Yeah.
Grant calls it the intent to apply pre-application questions. I mean, they've got that on there,
Yeah,
is the intent to
I don't
apply.
think it matters. if
for
you call it like
pre-application,
that,
but-
call it.
So, yeah, are you guys
How
talking
do we,
about
how do we
manage this?
advertise this?
We're gonna advertise it on, in the advertiser and on social media.
Who's gonna pay for it?
I will write a press release, that's free. I will formally ask the Chamber of Commerce to send it out to all
Which
of
we will
their
do,
members
that's free.
for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
And then I think
And then
if
when
the
the county
county
sends
sends
it out,
it on the
we can share it on
website,
social media.
But does like public notice stuff, when the county does public notice, do you guys pay the paper to post that? Yes, we don't have. a
Yeah,
website.
But the
If
commission
you're
has
on
a
the
commission admin have budget.
dude, cough it up.
You guys use it all?
Not for this,
Get
we
a
have a
swear
budget
jar?
for this.
Well, we have $1,000 in our, for advertisement in the admin budget or for press releases or whatever. I just looked at the budget. Public hearing.
I think we can do a fun free one, but that's
If
not
the
gonna
commission wants
hit
to go
like
on the hook for
the,
that,
you
we'll
know.
pay for it, but the commission's gotta make that decision.
Once the chamber though, shares it, we can share it on our socials. That's
Yeah, there's a
what,
lot of free ways to
3,800
get this
people.
out too.
I can share it.
We can start there.
Yeah, we got press releases up both.
I do just want to say though, that like, I mean, when we were at the commission meeting and you've got the county attorney talking, I mean, what they're talking about is not just like sharing this via private parties and like
Public
targeted
notice.
networks, it's
public
also
notice.
about public notice. I mean,
Maybe
that's.
that is
All right,
one of the things
how
that
much
we have
is it
to
to
think about.
two ads to run it in one set of ads in both papers, at least just once?
I'm
It's like-
$1,000 for public notice in in the general fund budgeted for public notices. Would this count as that? I would think it would.
This would count, sure.
Are you a
Do we use up
January
all
to
that
December?
$1,000
Oh, yes.
easily? So we need more money budgeted for that in the future? Okay. I have a discretionary fund. I don't know if I can use it for that.
We can probably find somewhere if the commission is on board.
Mel, get them
But
on.
we
board.
don't
Let's
have
get-
time for we don't have time for them to vote.
No, we
Well,
don't, but we can.
So why don't we,
I actually, I'm not sure that, I mean, if the commission needs to vote, then we can do what we can do for free. While we move towards public notice, and we just don't close things. And
This-
Right, how long do
Okay.
we leave it open to accommodate that?
I don't know, I mean,
A little bit
I
longer.
just think that this is.
We can pay,
important.
we
It's
can figure
important
out a way to pay for
for
the
the
public notice
commission
thing,
to
as
be
long as the
hearing about the
commission is
challenge
aware
of
that
doing
at some point it might require a budget amendment. We can pay for the public notice. We can pay for ads.
Okay, so we've got our next meeting. How much time do we want to give ourselves between when we close those out and that meeting so that we can review them before we go into that meeting?
Does it has to be before next meeting?
Which is the
to stay on
26th.
the
Yeah.
schedule?
So,
I said a week
Like a week.
before.
so we can all review them
Uh-huh.
before convening.
Yeah, because if not, we're gonna be sitting here reading
We're gonna be,
applications.
Well, and then don't we want to invite them to come and present? Do we want to?
That's
Do
the
we?
next
The
meeting,
second
isn't it?
No, that's after we, no, we're,
Okay.
You'd want it there.
First.
big call for ideas. The ideas come in, the ones that are like, wow, we could help this person for a future time. We put aside the ones that we like or that are more viable or ready to go. Then we ask them to come in. So it's definitely like big outreach, get some ideas, go through them, figure out which ones really need the nurturing and support and our volunteer time to help them get to the next level. So we're gonna put them through a screening process.
And bring
Okay,
it
And
so
back.
that
what
screening
if
process
we-
is gonna be based on the guidelines for the grant and the rules and all of that.
What if we make it even more efficient? Cause we're short on time and we say how we're gonna add that step into that Google sheet is then we all read them independently so that we come prepared for the meeting and we force rank them. So you vote on your top 3 and we start the discussion going greatest
Just make it so we
response.
all get the Google response.
Correct,
so
yeah.
everyone gets
So
it.
we
When
all
it
get
comes
the
in, we
responses,
automatically get
We
it.
vote for 3 or 4 or 6 or
But the
whatever,
cutoff's the
but we
19th.
build it into the Google process.
Yeah, I love it.
The cutoff is the 19th though, this
Okay.
hard cutoff, because that's 1 week before the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask a nuts and bolts question though? Is it okay for us to do this legally? Like, can we
I'm wondering that
use the
myself.
Google form and collect public information, share it among a county committee, you know, all that, is this a legal
Well, I
way
mean,
of
it'll
doing
go
this?
on to our.
We
public
call this
documents for the meeting,
pre-scoping.
right?
I'm gonna,
Yeah, I just think
You
that
check?
like how you manage private information is something that governments
You
have rules
redact it?
about.
You redact
Who's
it.
gonna react? to it?
We are, I guess.
You know?
I
Like,
think that, okay.
and even just having it be.
Is it gonna be-
Stop
is it
for
gonna
giving
be-
the
if we
thing
don't
at the
have
bottom of the Google doc
conversation?
that you are submitting this for public information.
It's an open.
That's a-
You're consenting.
We don't
Yeah,
have
So by filling this
conversations,
out,
but
this
if
is
it's
your
just
consent
available
to
That
be
sounds
shared.
good to me. I just think we want the,
Big
somebody from
idea,
county
it's not-
to sign off.
It's not specific.
You can do the
small-
ranked choice thing.
We don't
You
need,
can't
like,
make it,
personal details.
Right, you're just-
Totally.
a
Fine.
comment about
I
a
mean, I can
certain
understand
project.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we're not
Like,
getting.
Yeah, I get
Ashley's project, we could not make it a
Right.
comment on.
Not comment on it.
We wouldn't
outside
comment
of
through the
meeting.
Google Doc, we would just rank them and
So
then
in the
comment in
past,
detail.
Just vote.
How did these?
I think that would be okay. I don't know. I've seen that, like, Round City Route.
And then they shared do that, or how did you guys get your things in the past?
In the past. They would get emailed to Ben Alter.
Mhm.
That's all. And then he would share them as appropriate. through our
I think that's
packets-
more appropriate.
Through our packets.
Without, I can get a hold of Steven, so without any sort of like formal legal guidance, I think that the submissions should all go to Econ Dev at Grant County.
Okay,
I think it's a cleaner method.
and somebody can answer that email.
Can I also make a suggestion? So, after this and they are, ranked and we decide we're gonna move forward with these people to come in and present, I guess, is that what we've decided? Can we create some sort of document that is like response back that is like maybe, uniform, that's like, thank you so much for your big idea. We want you to think of us in the future, because I really think that the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
communication piece behind that, there was a lot of, people I had talked to that said, you know, I was kind of out in limbo, I didn't know, and then all of a sudden it was a no, and it's like, well, what did they say, reasons why, and there was like this like lag, and
Yeah.
so some of that.
And we probably can't give like individual reasons why for everyone. I mean, I'd like to say
That's why I'm
no,
saying
but we
a
can just say that there
uniform
was
that
a
says,
voting
"Thank you,
process.
come
that-
back."
Yeah, and I think pre-managing expectation, what if I write that in for the group to review? Like, as you're applying, this is really limited, and it's not necessarily a no, it's a not this time, because it may take longer to develop. It may take, you know, multiple cycles or whatever, so to kind of manage that expectation, and then they get that nice little message after they finish the Google Sheet, just reminding them, you know.
When we can still use the Google form, it just needs to go to the,
I think that's probably the cleanest, yeah.
okay, and then you'll,
And then we rank it at our meeting. Is that the idea?
Yeah, we'll get all of them out before the meeting.
On the 19th.
Do you know what? I swear to you, that's how we did the Trial to Tomorrow RFP responses too. Is I remember that we ranked them in a Google Doc. Do you remember that part of the process?
I wasn't on the steering committee, but I think that's exactly. the
That's
process we-
exactly how we did it in the steering
Yeah,
committee,
somebody
is
should
there was
find as
literally
long
a
as it
score
comes-
sheet.
Somebody from the county's administering
Uh-huh.
the
If,
process.
I don't know if you're allowed to borrow him or whatever, but Ben Alter did a great job of setting up, and I wanna say that it was a Google Sheet. And there was like, you gave it points for each one, so you could say feasibility, impact, whatever, and then we could just start from the greatest to the least, just to make sure that we're covering the most important stuff first, maybe.
On like a one
So-
to 5 or 10.
Yeah. Mhm.
So as the university is a public institution, I imagine that it's the same for this group. Like we have to have a matrix like that when we evaluate people, because somebody could come back and ask us why, and we have to be able to defend that, other than like, well, we had a conversation and we didn't like your proposal. It's
No,
like,
we
well,
don't think
have
you
a
can
matrix
pull it off.
system,
You got a 3.
Here it is, and, you know.
From
So
everybody.
the rubric, the grading rubric does not need to be like huge and complex, but it needs to be robust.
Just has to
There's some
exist,
scrutiny,
right? And we're gonna need two then, I think, because we're gonna need one for the RCOG and one for the RCG, because we need to find this big project. But if we can't, like,
But if we can't, we still have the RCG.
that's true, but also like, I think how we're gonna judge them, it has to be in those two buckets, cause like, I don't know, like it.
Can we combine the buckets? Like,
Well, the reason I'm worried about it is like, say you get the rubric and you get 800, you get 50 applications in front of you, right? And you need to judge them, and you're gonna have to put in scores in the rubric. What if one of the projects that comes from a partner that can manage $600,000 just doesn't show up for you? It doesn't meet it doesn't come to the top of the list because the smaller projects were ranked better. Like, we still want to identify that project because it's important to us to bring $600,000 to the county,
Mhm.
right? So
I
like,
just added
I'm just-
cost to the questionnaire. I think that
I
that
think
has
as
to be a
long as
part
we're
of it
just
too.
rank, I mean, maybe it could be the same rubric, but used separately twice. Once for our COG, because we want the best, we need to find out what are the
Yeah.
best proposals for the RCOG and what are the best proposals for the RCG.
right, but remember, this is like pre-scoping. This is like formal, I mean, I know we have to
Yeah,
follow
but
the
we're
law
gonna
and
drop
everything.
projects. If we drop a project, that
No,
could
but
be a good RCOG
We're not gonna,
We might,
well,
if we need to create a rubric that's
Yeah.
gonna have numbers, and we're gonna have to make decision based on those numbers. And the Moonflower, who I talked to about the kitchen project,
mhm.
doesn't score as high because we messed up with our rubric even, or whatever, like.
Well, I had to use a rubric on the Quality Growth Commission for picking land that we were gonna choose to give money to.
Yeah.
And, we never had that happen. I mean, because,
But why not? Why not? Even if we keep the same rubric, why
Okay.
not rank them in two different categories?
well,
One for proposals that could be above $200,000 and one for under.
yeah.
Is there a problem?
Well, no, it's just a little more complicated, but if you want to, it's fine. It's more like the whole point of this broad outreach is to get all these ideas. And we might have a pile of projects that were like, these people should be encouraged to keep going and come back next year. They just need to solve this problem or that problem. And then we're gonna have this ones, okay, these match this grant, these match that grant. I think we can do that.
Without confusing the people that
Yeah.
are trying for
Well,
it.
that's right. Like, I'm worried about
Yeah,
if
I
you have
like
to
that
publish
idea,
this
Tasha.
rubric, then the whole thing, like our whole goal is pre-ideas, pre-scoping, expression of interest.
Available for people to see after we use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
think
don't
in
get
the,
that.
in the small call for action, we just say, projects will be evaluated on A, B, C, and D. And we
Exactly.
don't list out the rubric in any sort of call to
Exactly. I'm
action.
just trying to
But
keep
then
the
we create
first
that-
round a little simple.
I'm totally with that. And then, but I just think in the way that we use
Sure.
the rubric, we end up
We
creating
separate
two
that,
separate columns.
yeah.
Sure.
That's all.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
the
fine.
overall community impact or broad ranging community impact could have a higher score. So,
Totally.
yeah.
So when do we create the rubric?
By the way, that's exactly the reason why I think that we would love to combine. Because if Moonflower is who you have in mind for a commercial kitchen, there is an equally strong partner
Yeah.
in Castle
That's awesome.
Valley. You could combine those, have a spot in between. And, right, but if you're growing things in Castle Valley
And processing.
and
We
processing
need to get
things,
everybody to talk.
you
Yeah,
know,
I would almost caution against using any specific project names in this sort of a meeting until we've got all the proposals back.
Yeah.
Say,
Yeah, those ones we've already talked
getting
about.
Way,
That,
we're
that.
throwing
we've
around
talked about
examples to
things.
try to see how they
sure.
would fit through the process and if the process would trip them up. But I just think we want to be really broad and really encouraging and create and get a bunch of people to say some ideas. And then once they have those ideas, we can figure out, do any of these really fit?
Yeah.
And so, and I think we have to give them these links to these grants but I think there's gonna be some idea that they aren't gonna have done enough research. They might have a really good idea, but not have done the research to figure out it doesn't really fit. But maybe there's a way we could advise them of how it could fit in the future or whatever. So this first round really just, we don't want to do anything wrong, but we also we want to be really broad-based and see what comes. And then, because we're going to be doing this year after year, somebody is. And so getting this longer pipeline of projects is really what we're hoping
So-
for.
So in our last 10 minutes, let's make sure, I just want to make sure that we're at like decision point and we've got the next steps clear. So one thing I just want to ask guidance on, I guess, is do we need a motion to like authorize moving forward with? I mean, like, it sounds like Melissa's volunteering, maybe not, to help get a first draft going of some of this stuff, and then we'll circulate it for feedback. That sounds like the process that we want is
Do
something.
we
of-
have to do that, or can we just say, yeah, get it done and let's
I think
get
she
it
would
out
like
there?
some feedback. I think
Okay.
she would like, so we could make a committee. So
But I thought she
everybody's not-
said the 4 buckets, but then she kind of added the costs and challenges, so there's really 6 buckets. But is that not what we are gonna be decision making on, like,
Well, I think
get the
this,
little deal going, and then we can say, hey, everybody, because we have to have all of these big ideas by the 19th of March. We
Yeah,
gotta do it.
well, I think
Do
if
we need
we,
it by March 19th? And we have until June, right, to get it to the county commission?
but we
So-
have to,
But then you
once
gotta
this
narrow.
is for the short list. So like the process would be, I'm thinking,
Yeah, go.
right, it's, we put out this big call. And then Melody said we give them the deadline of the 19th. And then we're gonna look at those and we're gonna come back to our next meeting in March. We're gonna shortlist those puppies. And say, okay, we think that these are the 6 that have legs. We're gonna let them pitch to
Present.
us, like, and we can ask them questions and stuff. And then we refine down so that for the next one, we've got 2 or 3 that we're starting to really start working on budget.
Oh my God.
What, like,
And
hey,
get them
how are we gonna
to-
mitigate this
to
risk? Do you think you
application.
can work with this or whatever? And then for the last one, the last meeting, we have to vote on what goes to the commission. And then somebody that used to be the economic development department, it sounds like now it's the county administrator, bottles that up and writes that up to the
It's go
commission
to
for a
go.
vote.
Got
Yeah.
but between, I'm just, can I
I
hear?
was just gonna answer
Yeah.
your first question.
Yeah,
I think it's important to have a motion.
yeah,
So there's something in the minutes that shows that
we
this was
decided to go through this
discussed
process.
and there's a clear plan of action.
Great, so I think,
And I,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I would include in the motion, I think Melody's idea of kind of a subcommittee to get a smaller group of people working on this so that it's actually done in a timely manner is probably relevant as well.
Okay, so.
Because you don't want to violate the quorum rules, but you also want to get this done.
Okay, so if we create have a motion that creates a subcommittee. We have a couple people, they can review the drafts and get this out, right? Okay,
I move that we create a subcommittee to put out our call for intent to apply. Call for intentions, call for ideas. And that subcommittee is charged with writing the introduction, the call for ideas, and the application.
And consists of,
Marketing it.
And consists of 3 lucky volunteers.
I would name the volunteers in the motion.
Oh, who wants to volunteer for this subcommittee?
Brittany,
I do want to go that one, yeah.
Brittany volunteers,
Melissa, you have to volunteer.
I'll volunteer.
volunteers,
Yeah.
probably one more for.
Either well, we could probably do, the committee
Longer
might be able to
email.
do it.
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write some stuff. And email some stuff and give you a timeline to give me back feedback on the stuff. And then I would like to share the stuff with everyone so that the chamber could then deploy that in their way.
I'll
It's ready.
deploy it once you
Deploy it in
tell
their
me.
network.
Yeah, I'll deploy it, but someone who knows the grants a little bit better than me
Well, I'm happy.
should be the third person. I think you should be the
All right,
third person.
sure. Okay, so that's.
The
part your
3 of you.
motion.
So my motion is to create
You've said that.
okay, good, thank you.
But the names being,
I'll
but
second.
The
including
names are Melissa, Brittany, and Chris.
I second.
Jasmine seconds. Any discussion?
Yes, should they also be responsible for putting that rubric together?
That's gonna be the commission, somebody. I mean, not the commission, the administrator, somebody.
And he was saying like, we need this by Friday.
It sounds like as
Not the
long as you enunciate
rubric.
enunciate the sort of ABCD by which they will be graded or something like that.
I
will
thought the
be a part
links
of the
were gonna
call.
be in there anyway, not for this one, but for like the next set. Is that what you're saying, Randy?
Yeah, because otherwise we're gonna get here on the 19th and we're gonna have no.
Rubric to judge.
Rubric to judge the application.
Can this be the rubric? What if it's a shortened summary of each of the questions and you're scoring their answers to each of those questions on a 1 to 5?
Let's authorize, if you don't mind, Ashley,
Yes.
amending the motion to
I like that.
authorize
I
the
like that.
subcommittee to create a rubric as well.
Yes.
I authorize the subcommittee, I amend the motion to authorize the subcommittee to create a rubric as simple as possible, please. And I liked that idea. No, a rubric for judging these initial expressions of interest.
Okay, so now you gotta vote on the amended motion, then the original motion.
Well, if the amended motion passes, we don't. I just read off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, yeah, the amended she just seconded the amended and she seconded the first one. So we
Okay.
can
Okay.
vote on this, on the amended one.
I'll call for a vote. All in favor of creating that subcommittee? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Unanimous.
The amended
So I think we're good.
motion.
Amended motion passes.
Okay, so today is Wednesday. Would the subcommittee be okay if I got something to you by end of day Friday and asked for feedback by Monday? So that I can incorporate your feedback and send it to the larger group on Monday before end of day. Does that work?
Thank you.
What's the cutoff for a, letter to the editor or putting the paper and all that stuff? I think is Monday
Wednesday.
morning,
Is it Monday?
No, it's Friday afternoon at 5.
Friday afternoon at 5.
Yes, I
For
got,
the paper, what about the advertising?
I don't know that one, but I think it's,
Where's this link going? Cause I'm gonna need that for the copy. Is it going to a county website? Is it going?
Well, I think we'll just have to email Quinn to get whatever email he recommends.
But I need to have a link where they can have access to the RCOG document and I can do that on my personal drive stuff, but I need an official one.
oh,
Do you
Are
see
those
what
not
I'm saying?
available on a state website though? I would link it to the states.
Yeah.
The state should have.
You just provide me a link, brother, and I am all in. So
The requirements
anything
and
that we
the
deploy,
RCG and the RCOG.
yeah, they're gonna have to hit a link and at that link, wherever that space lands, they're gonna need a 1-sheeter for the RCG and a 1-sheeter for the RCOG and a link to the Google submission form. So where would you like that to live?
I think instead of having a single place, we just use those 3 links separately in the document probably.
Yes.
yeah, but
But
Well,
he's
either-
saying that the
subcommittee's gonna
form
have
has
ask
to
the
go to,
question, And we'll work it out.
tell
That's
me
gonna
where
be
you
part
want
of
it
the
posted.
subcommittee's work.
Just what email you want the form to go to? The
we're
Google
not gonna
form.
post those 2 other docs. We're just gonna send them to the state.
Okay,
Yeah, they're just gonna push on the thing, they're gonna go to the state website.
Right.
But then when they push in the Google form, when they
It will
push
email
submit,
to him.
it will email to the.
Okay.
Econ.
Okay.
You're
Okay.
stoked about it.
So,
Do you know what? Make that face and that body language at me when you're drafting all the language to send out to the
Yeah,
subcommittee.
there we go.
Then do the thing with the, oh.
the final agenda item is future considerations. I would just suggest that you email any future considerations to me if you'd like to see something on next month's agenda, in particular. So with that,
So I got the email from Ben, but are you gonna be starting the emails now, or who am I looking for whenever they send the email?
For help, he
For
said
any of
that,
this?
gonna have to come from the county.
said the admin.
Okay,
Commission admin.
Commission admin, like official packets and stuff.
yeah,
right?
that's what I was kind of,
But individually, you can email me if you want to suggest something
Gotcha.
for the next agenda.
And then he'll work with them, they said it.
Yeah, and I'll work with the commission admin to set up the agenda.
And if you just go on if you honestly just go and sign up for notifications, like I got the email, notification that the agenda was
and then it
posted
will pop
before
out to
Ben.
me. Okay.
Yeah, before
Oh,
Ben
me
sent
too.
it to
Yeah,
me,
I signed
so,
up for that.
yeah, so if you sign up for that, then you automatically get those, but I mean. Sometimes they send it out to the board separately, I don't know, every board seems to do everything so different.
That's fine.
So it's 5:02. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.
Well done, Chris.